Hello, I'm joining you from the Presidential Palace here in Baku again. Today, the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Socialist Republic of Vietnam is paying a state visit to Azerbaijan. It's the first visit of this kind. We remember that since 1992, when these nations established diplomatic relations, there have been a couple of important visits, but we haven't had a state visit. President Aliyev himself was in Vietnam back in 2014, which was a state visit, but in 2015, when the President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam visited Azerbaijan, that was an official visit. So it's a moment of diplomatic delicacy and accuracy. And today, the countries signed a very important document known as the Joint Declaration on Strategic Partnership, which actually upgrades bilateral relations between the two nations to a completely new level. The relations have always been very constructive and very plausible and positive, and actually they, in terms of their essence and roots, stretch back well before Azerbaijan regained its independence back in 1991, going back as far as 1959, when the president of the then Democratic Republic of Vietnam visited Soviet Azerbaijan. And today, a couple of documents have been signed. They relate to a number of issues, including defense, energy cooperation, transport, infrastructure, science, culture, and many other matters. And actually, we had an opportunity to see those documents being exchanged in front of our eyes. And the General Secretary of the Communist Party mentioned about his own invitation that was extended to Azerbaijani president, and it is quite likely that the Azerbaijani president's visit to Vietnam will take place at some point very soon indeed. Of course, this visit is taking place at a very important and interesting juncture, taking place against a backdrop of important developments. President Aliyev was in China just a few days ago, and that their strategic agreement, actually called Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement, was signed. And Vietnam is also a country which is operating in an incredibly difficult and complicated geopolitical atmosphere, forging very close ties with US and China, and also fulfilling this function of diplomatic geopolitical balancing act. And President Aliyev, during his remarks, mentioned about trade in particular. I think earlier there was no figure mentioned, but in his interview given to the news agency of the Vietnam, he mentioned the total turnover being around $223 million US, which is a significant figure, not a gargantuan one, of course. And President Aliyev, during his remarks today, mentioned that, of course, preponderant part of that trade volume is actually attributable to the oil exports of Azerbaijan. And when oil exports go up, that figure also naturally goes up. And there is a need for actually diversifying all the landscape involving the trade exchange between two nations. Orkun Amashov, AnewZ.